Welcome and welcome back, everybody. T here, and in today's video, I wanted to share a little simpery for one of my favorite platforms to play board gaming online, and that is Board Game Arena. Board Game Arena was started years and years and years ago. I first encountered it when I was looking for a place to play Choreo online, and for whatever reason, it was one of the few games that they had on there at the time. Now, coming back a few years after that, they really started to kick things off, and now they have over 500 different games that you can play. A couple of reasons why I love Board Game Arena before I get into my top 10 list. Number one, everything is programmed in, so none of this fiddly BS where you're just moving stuff around and you have to do all the calculations yourself, where it's easy for someone to make a mistake. In Board Game Arena, the rules are programmed in. It's a great way to play with friends, and it's a great way to learn games because you can't make any mistake. I also love that it has the option for timed turns, so there's not a lot of downtime at games if that's your thing. And it's great because there's a huge community of people. Like any game you want to play, there's always someone looking to play with you. So if you're not necessarily somebody who's gaming with friends on the platform, you can always find something. But today I'm here to talk to you about 10 of my all-time favorite games to play in Board Game Arena. Now, disclaimer, I do have a separate list that I'll be publishing sometime later of 10 of my favorite like small box tiny filler games. So these are more so like chunkier or mid-weight family style games that have a little more oomph to them. But without further ado, let's get started. Coming in at number 10, have I mentioned that I love the words dice worker placement? So good. And not only is this game a dice worker placement game, but it also has an aging mechanic. That's right, we're talking about Teotihuacan. This is a game where you're going to be moving your dice around on a different tableau in order to gain resources to build up the central pyramid and move around different temple tracks. This game has quite a bit going on, so I really appreciate again that on Board Game Arena, everything's programmed in. You know exactly where you can go, how many resources you would get, where your dice are at, which tracks will move up. I find playing this game in person, it can be really easy to forget one of your bonuses or to forget a certain step during scoring, or with the aging mechanics with your dice. So this one is really great to play on Board Game Arena. It just makes it clean and streamlined, and overall it's just a great game and a great experience to play it on the platform. Coming in at number 9, we have another big, crunchy, juicy boy, and that is Great Western Trail. This is a game where you are going to be collecting sets of cows in your hand as you progress through the trail and turning them in for points. Again, with this one, there are a lot of different things that are going on. You have the buildings, which you're using to create different routes. You have your train going around on the outside, which can get you bonuses. You have your own player board, which has some engine building and the little bit of deck building with getting your different cattle into your deck. There are also unique objectives you can get throughout the game, which there are just so many interesting, exciting things. And again, like I said with Teotihuacan, I love playing Great Western Trail on Board Game Arena because, again, you can't forget any of those little bonuses. It'll prompt you every single time. When I play this in person, the number of times I have to go back and say like, oh no, wait, okay, yeah, no, so like 5 turns ago, I forgot to take this other bonus. Just FYI. The one thing that I also love about Great Western Trail on Board Game Arena, and you can't see it here unfortunately, is that they have these little slide outs. So if you want to see your hand, there's like a bottom one that shows you the colors, but you can pop it out to see the actual cows and the actual objectives. And on the other side, they have a little tab that shows you your bonuses from your board, and you can pop it out, and it just is like a nice overlay that you can like slide in and out. It's like having one of those fancy board gaming tables that cost thousands of dollars, except here it's just built into the game. So you have your little trays for all your different things. Super clever idea and clean implementation for keeping the game board clean, but also having access to all the things you need on your turn when you need them. Next up, we have a favorite that really took me by surprise, and this is Deus. Deus is a game that features some mechanics of kind of area control or area influence, which I'm usually not a fan of. But the thing I love about Deus is that it's also a tableau builder, and the card play is just spectacular. So here you can see the main board where you're going to be putting your different pieces, but in order to get them out, you have to play cards. And when you play a card of a certain type, then it triggers all the previously played cards and you use all of their abilities. The other thing that's really cool is that the cards are multi-use. So you can use them to play to your tableau, or you can discard them. And whatever your top card is gives you a special ability, but if you stack it with other cards, it powers up that ability. This game is super tight. There are very few resources, very few buildings. In order to get more, you have to do those discard actions. So this game has overall one of the best examples of mitigating card luck, where you have a lot of cards, yes, but even if you get cards you don't need, they're helpful for you in terms of which ones you discard and when. It's a super interesting mechanic. It's one that I really love playing. I'm so glad that I can play it with friends online as well. Next up is a game that, at least here in the Western world, is sadly out of print. That is Yokohama. This is one of my favorite resource management order fulfillment games. In Yokohama, you're actually going to be placing assistants and your president out on the board to create different routes. And as you get more cubes on a particular space, the action that you can do there is going to be increased. You can also place different buildings to get you bonuses and to increase that limit for each one. The timing with this game is super interesting. It has a worker placement kind of feel, but in a very different way because you're creating those routes at the same time. Now, as you can see, there are a lot of different endgame triggers, a lot of different resources to manage, a lot of different achievements. So there's quite a bit going on, but again, everything works so well. And here you can actually see the different management boards, similar to what I was talking about, not quite as fancy as in Great Western Trail, but still quite functional. Overall, I think it's so great that Yokohama is on Board Game Arena because, again, it's not a game that everybody in the world has access to right at this time. So this is a great way to be able to play it in the meantime while we're hopefully waiting for some reprints. The next game on this list is not quite as chunky as the previously stated ones, but it is one of the most beautiful, charming games, and that is Takenoko. So in Takenoko, you are managing some bamboo gardens by manipulating the gardener and the panda on the board. This is such a delightful game to play in person, and I've had so much fun playing it online on Board Game Arena, both with friends and with random strangers. I think the presentation of the game overall is great, and the implementation here is fantastic. This is a design of Antoine Bauza's that has really held up over the years. I know that they came out recently with a second edition, which Board Game Arena was great about getting right on that and updating the rules and the iconography for that. So this is just one of those classics that has such a unique theme and such a unique way of moving with the different objectives for plots, for eating bamboo, for growing bamboo. It's very unique and very charming, and not quite like any other family weight games that I've seen. Now, a majority of the time when I'm playing on Board Game Arena these days, I'm playing 2 players one-on-one with a friend, and this next game is one of my favorite go-tos for that. Targi, which is a 2-player worker placement game. This is a really interesting one. If you haven't played it yet, you're placing workers on these border cards, but you can't place them across from your opponent's worker, nor on a space that already contains a worker. And then you're going to line up the cards in the middle to see which bonuses you get from the goods and tribe cards. So what you're doing is getting those different resources to try to trade them in to build your own tableau. And based on the arrangement of cards in your tableau, you can have unique endgame scoring, different abilities throughout the game, or even scoring bonuses for having rows of all the same or all different cards. There's a lot going on here, though the game itself is fairly easy to learn. This is just one of my all-time favorite 2-player games. Like our 2 previous selections, this game is a classic. In fact, the 10-year anniversary edition came out just a few years ago. Although it is just very much a solid worker placement game, for me, it is really held up over the years. That is Stone Age. The Board Game Arena implementation not only has the original edition, but the anniversary edition with all of the amazing upgrades and snow theme. So in addition to that, they also have the expansion and all the little mini expansions, which is just so cool. This is just a worker placement game where you're going out collecting resources, trading them in for different cards, or to build certain buildings. While there is some luck with the die rolls, there's a lot of mitigation. There are a lot of die rolls throughout the game, so I find that it's not too luck-based, at least not for my taste. This is one of the OGs, and it is one that I still enjoy playing both online and in person. The next game on this list is another family weight game. It's a little bit more straightforward, but is an amazing game nonetheless, and that is Potion Explosion from Horrible Guild. This is a game where you are going to be taking marbles off of a track, which will create sometimes collisions, allowing you to take more marbles of certain colors, and you will be using them to fill up your potions, which will give you unique abilities that you can use throughout the game. There's also some set collection elements, and that's actually how the game will end. When somebody has collected the given number of skill tokens, then the end will trigger. This is just a cool one to play, and although I love playing with the marbles in person, the BGA adaptation is really clean and really straightforward, so it's great to be able to play this one with friends that I can't necessarily hang out with in person. The next game on the list is another classic that has its own anniversary edition, and that is The Castles of Burgundy. Now, before y'all get all crazy here, I know we've had many editions, and there's some huge debate about first edition versus second edition in terms of the aesthetic, but do not worry, BGA has got your back. You can choose either edition for whichever aesthetic you want. So this is a tiling game where you're going to be rolling dice and using them to obtain tiles and place them onto your own personal board. These tiles will give you different actions, scoring objectives, benefits, and you're trying to complete different sections as quickly as possible. It has been not only one of my favorite games to play, but I think probably, thanks to BGA, one of my most played games this past year, just because it has made it super accessible to be able to play. I really enjoy especially playing this one at 2 players. It feels very tight because you have very limited tiles that come out each round, but it also scales well with 3 or 4. And last but not least, my top game I love playing on VGA is also one of my top 10 favorite games to play in person. And I feel like this is a little bit of sleeper here because unlike Capital Lux and Railroad Inc., there, I said it, this game is not one that I get to talk about a lot on the channel, mostly because it doesn't have solo play yet. Fingers crossed. We are talking about Res Arcana. This is a Tom Lehman game where you are building a tableau of cards and trying to get to 10 points as quickly as possible. The art of this game is just absolutely gorgeous. Oh, and my only complaint about BGA is that you can't see the art better like you can in person, but all in all, it still has a great aesthetic online as well. Going through, tapping, getting all your resources. I love this theme, so I'm very biased, but one of the most beautiful engine builders out there. And I love that you can also play with this expansions on Board Game Arena. Currently, there are 2 of 3 released, I believe. So there's a 3rd one planned, which is why I'm hoping that there will be some official solo play with that last expansion, but we shall see. This is my favorite game to play on Board Game Arena, but it is also one of my top 10 board games to play in person as well. So there you have it. Those are my top 10 board games to play on Board Game Arena. This video is not sponsored by Board Game Arena in any way, shape, or form. I just am a huge fan of the platform. I think they do it in a very inviting and community-friendly way that allows you to not only play with friends, but to make new friends and have great experiences playing games online. I will be releasing my top 10 filler games on Board Game Arena video sometime in the near future, so if you haven't already, please feel free to give a like on this video and subscribe. You can also click the bell for notifications so that you are the first to hear when that other video comes out. And before you go, let me know in the comments below, what are some of your favorite games to play online, either on Board Game Arena or on various different gaming platforms. Thanks so much for joining me as always, and I'll see you next time. Bye.